Dear SRCC community, an institution is always proud of its alumni who shape perspectives and industries. Today, we have the privilege of having Ms. Geetika Mehta, who is one such alumna of our college. So let's hear from her. Welcome, Geetika, and thank you for remaining connected with your alma mater.
Thank you for inviting me over. And of course, wherever I am today is where we come from. So of course, SRCC and my alma mater is important from that lens.
Thank you so much, Geetika. So Geetika, let us go back to your SRCC days. And you are one of those rare people who have made a mark in the global FMCG sector. So I just want to understand, when your journey started at SRCC, were there any lessons, any perspectives which you kind of inculcate here and they have left an indelible mark on your personality, on your thought process?
Firstly, absolutely yes. It has been really a matter of immense pride to have come out of SRCC. I remember at my time the cutoffs were very high. They're even higher now, but it used to be really something, a sort of a badge of privilege to get through SRCC. And therefore, when I did get through, it was very exciting. And what I learned here, this is your first experience of really moving out of school into college, is when you get freedom, but you also know how to use that freedom effectively. So doing things beyond academics, so extracurriculars, remaining curious, going beyond the syllabus to see what is the application of something that you learned. I think a lot of that grassroots level thinking really started when I came into SRCC. And of course, you're also surrounded by very smart people. So, you kind of, they push you, they stretch you, and therefore you grow as an individual. So I really think those have really left an indelible mark for me.
Yeah, you said grassroots level learning.
Yeah.
So, and any experiences which kind of those grassroots learnings kind of shaped, your interest in consumer behavior?
So actually, interest in consumer behavior happened as a byproduct. So of course, when I moved, economics I was very interested in, just how the world moves is an important one for me. And then I actually joined IIM-Ahmedabad. So I distinctly remember actually getting a lot of calls when I was in this campus by the day scholar point, it was called then, day ski point. I remember when I went into IMA, I actually was still divided between marketing and finance. I'm a dual specialization, so I've taken enough credits for both finance and marketing. So it's not that I was interested only in consumer. I think I'm interested overall in business. And therefore, that has, and like I said, the grassroots level understanding was how do you really connect the dots? And many years hence, I realized, exactly 25 years since I graduated from here, our job now is just connecting the dots of being able to pull together different streams, different functions to give an output which is kind of greater than the whole. And I felt that a lot of that I learned at SRCC.
Okay, from here on, as you have said, you went to Ahmedabad and from there to HUL. Those were your formative years, and in one of your interviews, I have heard that you have said that during those years, your initial career years, you had very interesting experiences which were very difficult and many times dramatic too, particularly related to your field sales.
Yeah.
Experience, and they kind of tried your resilience.
Yeah.
So, many of our students also want to join FMCG sector, and it's really tough, I believe, the initial years. So if you can share your experience and how did these formative years, these challenges shaped you as a leader which you are today?
So I think firstly, as a person, I love challenges. I respond to something which is exciting, something which somebody says, women can't be in sales. That excites me. Then I want to do that. So it is also therefore what is inherently your motivation. So challenges I like. I also firmly believe that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. and we were discussing earlier, when you get pushed, when you grow. If you're in your comfort zone, you will never really get that kind of growth. And therefore, a lot of field sales was pushing me into spaces where I was uncomfortable. But not just that, even beyond, even in roles that I have done, sometimes you feel you're not ready for those roles and you go in kind of half-baked. But when you kind of get there, you learn, you grow, you kind of assume the space that is rightfully yours. So, I think for me that is important, the ability to be able to remain curious, remain resilient, allow things to stretch you but not break, and remain really thankful to all these experiences which have shaped me into where I am today.
Yeah, so that is very interesting, because that means no complaints behavior at all.
Yeah.
Take everything which is very positive, and I hope Generation Z is listening. Because these reels and the research surveys, they generally talk about they are very difficult employees.
Yeah. So we have, of course, some Generation Z people in our offices as well. I think it's what motivates them. They want to work for organizations that are doing something which is creating a positive social, societal impact, or are doing things beyond just profit, or are things that help them grow and learn as individuals. So it's not only money. I think maybe when we started working, you would look at the salary package and decide. I think now the contours are so much more, and therefore it's more holistic, the way they decide what excites them to join an organization, and then what makes them want to stay and give their best. So it's just that the more vectors of motivation have been added, I think, but they still put in a lot of effort. I've seen that. Sometimes you generalize that, this generation is not working as hard. I think they can work hard. You just have to excite them enough to work for something, and then they are really unstoppable. You
cannot stop them. Yeah.
You're really unstoppable.
Yeah. So generally, when we do market surveys, when we read in our research papers, and it generally says that the consumer expectation of this Generation Z customer is very different from millennials. What is your perspective on this as a marketeer?
So I think they are different for sure, and also because at my time when we were consuming class or whatever, it used to be television. You would have one channel. It's a very different world that they have now got. They have different influences, and therefore, as a marketing perspective, you really need to speak to them in the language that they speak, and not in some other old-fashioned language. They connect to authenticity. You cannot, speak to them as a brand. You have to connect to them with what you really offer. So I find, and of course now we have a huge team of marketing at Nivea, and their day job is really how do we connect differently to this cohort, which is, not going to go only for what you say, but really what is the substance behind your speech as well. So I think that's important when we look at our marketing campaigns. And we do a lot of consumer-generated, user-generated content just to ensure it is from them speaking to them, rather than from a very old organization speaking down to them.
That is so wonderful, and I'm sure our students are learning a lot of live lessons from you. And you have worked across geographies, Thailand, South Asia, Brazil, etc., etc. So how are the consumers different across geographies and continents?
So I've done a global role. It was still based in India, but it used to handle, like you said, Brazil, South Africa, Thailand, and some parts consumers are different, some parts they're very similar. Yeah, so they all want to get ahead in life. They all believe appearances can open or shut doors. So some similarities actually exist across cultures, and there are some dissimilarities as well, especially actually in the working styles. And for those who are looking to work outside the country, for example, sometimes in Thailand, they would not say things to your face. They will not say no to your face. Okay. They may or may not agree, but they would, not necessarily listen to you, but they wouldn't say no. While in Brazil, they would be really aggressive, saying, but I don't agree to what you are saying, and why should we do it like that? all in the, of course, outcome of saying, give me a better product or give me a better communication for my consumers. So to be able to understand cultural nuances and then craft your innovations, your campaigns, your marketing spends is such an important element that I've learned through all my experiences that has stayed with me. And I think that actually works even within India. It actually works everywhere. Wherever you're trying to influence people, you have to understand where the other person's perspective is, is that they are looking for, and manage your narrative accordingly. It can be cross-cultural, it can be in a boardroom with different people who have different kind of stakeholders that you are trying to manage.
Yeah, so certainly a leader is talking. Yeah, so talking about the leadership roles. If I say we generally read that leadership is a mix of power and responsibility. To you, which you will be saying that leadership is power or leadership is more of responsibility. What is your perspective?
I think it changes also. So the first time I was, by the way, a leader was in SRCC. I was the president of the Economic Society. I was also working in the Student Council for Crossroads. So at that time, it is a lot of work, right? You're trying to get sponsorships, trying to get people to... So it's a very different kind of leadership. You're trying to get peers to help you put together something which is a program you can feel good about. And it varies. When I was in sales, it's a very different kind of leadership. I was leading teams which were maybe twice my age. I just joined campus from IIM-Ahmedabad, and so very different leadership. And how do you earn that respect and that level of trust with teams that are really have spent a lot more time in sales than you have? When I moved on to brands, it's a very different kind of leadership. And now when I'm in the last few years since I've been a general manager, it's a leadership where you have to handle all functions. You cannot be a marketeer. In fact, I try and stay away from marketing just to ensure that the CMO is getting their own space to be able to craft out. So you have to handle all functions. You have to see the interlinkages of all functions. So I think leadership varies by the job that you do. But something I read recently which really stayed with me is leadership is not being in charge. Leadership is taking care of people in your charge.
Wonderful.
And I thought that
so
is
nicely put.
So nicely put. Yeah. So I think somewhere we believe that we are leading, but we are actually helping our teams really and taking care of those in our charge.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure your teams love you for this perspective.
I'll take a pulse survey and I'll let you know.
Yeah. So Geetika, we have talked about your leadership roles, and one thing you said that from brand you moved to this management thing, right? So I'll say that from functional areas you moved to strategic leadership.
Yeah.
So what difference does it entail, when you approach your work limited to brand and when you are looking at strategy?
So I think the first few years you try and gravitate towards your functional expertise. It's natural. It's a muscle that works and you make it work harder.
Yeah.
And therefore you have to deliberately shut that off and saying, I will focus on the other functions a lot more. For me, what worked was asking a lot of questions. So really my teams had to bear with me asking why so many times for different things, because I wanted to be able to understand it fully. And I said that at the beginning, saying I will ask a lot of questions, but I promise once I get it, then you will have all my support, and then you have my kind of buy-in into this. I think what changes as a perspective when you move into general management is you really have to start looking at the whole. So you cannot read the newspaper also without thinking, oh, there is a Mumbai marathon, maybe we can participate. It can be a great opportunity to get the employees together. Or, oh, there are some floods in Bhopal, oh, I have a factory, what can I do? So your mind is, I think, perpetually looking at, like I said, connecting the dots of what's happening. And that's really, I think that perspective changes when you become handling general management. And then, like you said, it's more strategic. It is less doing. And sometimes I struggle to explain my job to my boys. They are 14 and 11, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I do nothing." But I hope that somewhere I'm able to inspire my teams and provide a vision for them to be able to, do greatness. So I think it's in that sense, strategy roles have to be a little bit more into the future. While when I was more functional roles, it was here and now.
You just said that you have 2 boys, and leadership, senior leadership roles really need a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
So how do you negotiate the interplay between your professional responsibilities and family life?
I think ruthless prioritization. And I use the word ruthless because sometimes you have, so I'll give an example. There was a meeting and by chance the kid was at home that day, so school holiday, and he's like, Mama, you won't stay at home. I was like, no, I have to go for this meeting, and it's like, but I'm at home, but I was like, I love my job. And that moment that child said, oh, so you love your job more than you love me. Because you're going to the office. And I was like, no, but there is also responsibility and there is also commitment. So I think sometimes obviously it is natural to feel a little bit of saying, am I doing the best? But equally, when I'm at home and if there is a work crisis, I will be there. And if I'm at work and there is a home crisis, I absolutely would attend to whatever is important. I get into office by 8. I try and leave at 6. And the rest of the time I try and ensure I am as good a parent as I can be. And that does come at the cost of not being able to maybe go to as much events as you want to, not being part of the alumni as much as I would like to. Yes, because
socially you have to reduce your time.
Yeah, I think it's prioritization, and therefore between work and family, it leaves very little time for other things. But there will be a time and space, when the kids fly away, then you would have all the time to come back to your interests, etc. So I think, yes, for me, prioritization has helped me make this balance work.
Yeah.
And of course, the support of an absolutely supportive spouse. I think, an equal partner, without whom then it's very hard for you to be able to bring your best self forward.
So you need the entire ecosystem.
Yes.
That is true. Any working women will resonate so much with you, what you are saying.
But I think why I want to say that is it is possible also.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear, and we do see statistics that women kind of fall off during, when they have a child or when they get married. It is possible to have it all, so don't be limited by saying, oh, but I have a young child at home and I can't work. You can. You have to find the right prioritization and the right way to handle it, but it's possible.
So you just mentioned marathon. That reflects your interest in long run marathons, and you are a Kathak dancer as well.
Yes.
And so do you think these kind of activities, extracurricular or co-curricular, are very important for the personality traits one develops in the growing up era?
They are essential. It is as important because, of course, academics is one dimension, but creativity is another dimension, which I fulfilled through, Kathak. I did that for 14. Actually, I left it, unfortunately, when I went to Ahmedabad. But I'm still in touch with my, teacher, and we still talk. And whenever I'm in Delhi, I try and meet her. So I think there is that bond. But that was my outlet of creativity, which was very, very critical. And marathon is something that I do now. I'm also getting into strength training, so it's a mix. But that's, again, for me, a metaphor of life, actually, because life has its ups and downs. You don't run the 42 kilometers at the same pace. It's at the beginning, it's faster. Sometimes you have to slow down. Sometimes you get a sprain and you take a rest. And that is life, So you can be very fast in the beginning and, somebody else may be faster and then you're looking at them. But you're running your own race and your only competition should be yourself. Are you faster? Are you better? Are you feeling like you've done it in the best possible way? And that's the way to look at life.
Yeah, so what you have said is like, the world is so competitive. That is so useful for our present generation to understand that you are your own competition and you'll have your day.
Yes, everybody actually. You will reach wherever you need to reach.
Yeah. So one question which I'm sure many students will like to ask me to you, and that is like, this is rapidly changing world with a lot of artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and very these consumer tastes which are like, changing at a very fast pace. So people who are interested in taking global leaders, or they envision that at some time in life they are going to reach the pinnacle of their career, anything they can do right now when they are undergraduates?
I think that's a lifelong lesson. Be like a sponge. Keep soaking up different experiences, different things, dabble in kind of different things. So when you're at SRCC, for example, ensure that you're getting the opportunities to be part of different societies, different dramatics. So I think just explore all avenues, because that is useful as you go ahead in life. You want to lead a multinational also. It is about ensuring you've had different experiences, because they help build your gut, they help build your confidence, they help build your personality, they help build your perspective. And I think that, I would say, is important. For me, what has also been important is curiosity, and for me that has translated into lifelong reading. That's another perspective building exercise. So you open up your horizons, and I would strongly suggest that. So do not, you're already in SRCC, so you're already academically great. Ensure you're rounding that off with other aspects that you should and must spend time on.
Thank you so much, Geetika. We are so proud of you. Thank you for sparing time, and I want to tell to SRCC community, she has flown from Mumbai and she has reached the college in no time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.